The wide receiver position, baby. Opportunity utilization. We see it all over the timeline, all over the TV screens, the route running savants, the players that are earning the targets on their team, the players that when they get the ball, they can do something special after the catch, and the catch that can score you 6 at any given moment. Yes, utilization and opportunity is what we are chasing in fantasy football, and you came to the place that's got the best damn visualization tool out there to help you see how the stuff that these guys are doing on a week in and week out basis is translating to fantasy success. Yes, I'm talking about Trinity. You got to trust it, baby. And heading into week 5, we already got a little taste of how that opportunity and that utilization plays out in that Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup. We're going to talk about Darnell Mooney, talk about Chris Olave, George Pickens, and I really want to hone in on that Carolina Panthers situation. Y'all know what it is, baby. Opportunity utilization. You got to trust it. Trinity Talk. Let's get it. Appreciate y'all pulling up and giving me a little bit of your time today. If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you do one thing. Hit that thumbs up button, like, and subscribe. I know a lot of y'all tap in. A lot of y'all check out the channel, and I appreciate those of y'all that show love. But if you're here, help an independent content creator grow. I see you over there. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for all the dope free content that we put out on this channel. Now, opportunity and utilization. Yes, you got to trust it. Let's head over to ddfantasyfootball.com, pull up the Trinity tracker, and talk about it. 5 players that we discussed last week, and I really think it was 6. I think I talked a little bit about Amari Cooper, so I just put them up on the screen. Let's just see what they did. Week 4. We know we're going into week 5. Talked about not being concerned about George Pickens, and in week 4, the utilization was outstanding. 9.45, one of the best utilization scores on the week. However, he still performed below expectation based on that type of historical usage. So George Pickens continuing to get used down the field, continuing to be the only target in town. This week versus Dallas, I am going to continue to trust the Trinity and trust George Pickens like what Fields is doing. I mean, this is an insanely high usage score. And remember, this is tracking not Pickens' usage in New Orleans with Chris Olave or how he was used versus how Amari Cooper was used, but this is his share of usage in his isolated offense. And I think that's very important to remember as you use this and we work through these players and how to use this tool. Chris Olave, I told you guys after week 3, I'm not worried about it. Trust the usage. I believe things will start to shake out between he and Rashid Shaheed. And Chris Olave, 8.04, great score, and he scored us 16 fantasy points in that matchup. Good stuff. Worked out well. I said I wasn't worried about Brandon Ayuk. No way am I concerned. And he went out there in week 4 and again was out-earned by Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel return. I am a little worried about Ayuk at this point. It is very clear whether we like him or not. Juwan Jennings is a big part of that San Francisco offense. This is where Brandon Ayuk has lived all season. He's inside of that threshold, that range where you really want the wide receivers. He's still usable. He's still being used in this offense, but there is some separation right now between he and Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings. I don't think this is where Brandon Ayuk is going to live for the entirety of the season, but long gone are the days of me wishing and hoping he's a top 12 wide receiver. I think his usage is like wide receiver 3 range, right? What this is saying. If you got to play him, fine, but there are probably other options that are better. I think I talked about Amari Cooper, and it did not work out for any of the Cleveland Brown pass catchers. Usage was there, but this is another good case that even though he's been utilized in the areas that should traditionally and historically score fantasy points, there's something going on with the offense, and we know the quarterback drives efficiency, and Deshaun Watson has been wildly inefficient, even though they're throwing the ball at a higher rate over expected than any other team in the league. This is just a bad offensive situation. Watson's got to play better for anybody to be good right now. In Cleveland, Darnell Mooney, let's save him for a second because what we talked about after week 3 with Chicago Bears rookie wide receiver Rome Odunze, it happened. I said I was very fearful that Keenan Allen would go into the mix and it would just stop all the progress that we started to see from Odunze. Keenan Allen was back. Odunze did nothing. I think he had 1 catch for 10 yards or 2 catches for 10 yards. The Bears offense couldn't do much, but Rome Odunze was clearly pushed to the back of the pecking order as they rode DeAndre Swift, and Keenan Allen was back in the mix. I liked what was happening, but we kind of called it that with Keenan Allen back in the mix, it's probably going to really hurt Rome Odunze and them pulling back on Caleb Williams throwing the ball. And finally, a player that we saw play on Thursday night, Darnell Mooney. So let's think about this. Let's think about what happened. Going in to week 4, the last time I was on here talking about usage, Darnell Mooney was suiting up for that matchup, whoever they played before the Thursday night game. And he went out there and he was utilized just around the same amount as Drake London. So let's do this. Let's get all these guys off the board and zone in on this and tell you this is why you continue to use this tool and you rock with it and you trust it. So after week 4, there was a clear delineation between Drake London and Darnell Mooney. They separated themselves a little bit from one another. They had been pretty tight going into week 4. So just wind the clock back to week 3 with these guys. And this is after week 3. There's Drake London, 8.83, 18.7 fantasy points. Darnell Mooney, 8.21. Below the line, we know that there's some more room for some points. So they were pretty tight after week 3. We go into week 4, hoping to see a little more of a split, and then boom, we get it. And I talked about this on the last show. Drake London clearly asserted himself as the primary in this offense, but Darnell Mooney still highly involved with almost a 7 Trinity score, only got us 8.6 fantasy points. But what I talked about in that video was it's very likely that based on how these two have flip-flopped all season, they will both continue to be heavily involved in the offense, and I wouldn't be shocked if there was a week where Mooney was the primary and Drake London was the secondary option. Well, we go to Thursday Night Football, and both of those guys were absolute studs, right? Darnell Mooney was a monster. So week 4, he went out there 3 for 56. Drake London had 6 for 64. So even though London was fed a little bit more going into week 4, they scored roughly around the same points because Darnell Mooney gets downfield targets. He gets stuff down the field. And then, like I said, going into last night's game, after the Thursday Night Football game, Darnell Mooney, 9 receptions, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Drake London had over 150 yards. He scored a touchdown. Both of those guys were blow-up spots. When the quarterback hit an efficient level, Kirk Cousins, even after week 4, as much usage as these two got, still below where historically players that are being utilized that much should score. All this told me was, man, if Kirk Cousins can have a game based on how these two are being used in this offense, there could be some big blow-up weeks. We get to Thursday Night Football, and both of those guys absolutely smash for you, and both of those players are probably going to end up as wide receiver 1s on the week. So this is how you just, when you see stuff like this where players are constantly involved in the offense, high usage and utilization doesn't always mean high fantasy points immediately following. But if there's an environment where there's going to be points scored, it's going to go to the players that the coaches continue to use. You see what I'm saying? It's simple. We make it very easy. We make it very simple. Now, one of the best use case examples of this tool and how offensive environment can really impact and change a wide receiver outlook, look no further than the Carolina Panthers. And we're going to pull it up and talk about Carolina. And we're going to walk through this together because it's a very good example of how things can change, and you should trust the usage and the points will follow. So we're looking at the Carolina Panthers pass catchers weeks 1 through 4 of the season and just seeing where they plot out on the table. Deontay Johnson leads the way, 7.39 score. Very good. 7.5 and above. That is wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 1 type usage, scoring as close to 14 fantasy points per game, followed by Adam Thielen, 6.24. And remember, the tool does not hurt you or ding you for missing games. It only accounts for what the coaching staff asks you to do when you're on the field. And when Thielen is on the field, he's asked to do wide receiver 2 type shit. That makes about sense. That sounds like what Adam Thielen is for this team at this stage of his career. You follow that up by Xavier Legette, the first-round pick rookie wide receiver out of South Carolina. We'll talk more about him in a second. Tight end, Trommy Trimble, and then that's probably John Mingo right there. So that's the whole look of the Carolina Panthers for the whole season. But we know there's literally been 2 halves to the Panthers season. So let's take a look at weeks 1 and 2 for Carolina. Look at this. 1 and 2. Without me hovering over a name, you can just look at these dots. And what do you see? What do you tell yourself? Man, everybody below the line. That's obviously not good. That should tell you that something about this offensive environment, probably the damn quarterback and offensive coordinator not on the same page, or QB not good. Something isn't even allowing these guys to hit average level based on what they're asked to do. Not even the back end guys. Nobody is even performing at a median level at scoring fantasy points. Second thing is, damn, no one's even being used at a comfortable range to deploy as a wide receiver one. And why on earth would I even want to throw you in as a 3 or a flex when you can't even score me in a middle of the road type points? And we know this is with Bryce Young. So who do we have here? Tommy Tremble leading the way. That's a problem. When Tommy Tremble is being utilized more than your wide receivers, that's an issue. Tommy Tremble leading the way, followed by weeks 1 and 2, Adam Thielen, and then Deontay Johnson. Not even inside the threshold, not even inside the range that you want to be starting a player. So that's with Bryce Young. And we know he was awful. Couldn't complete a pass, can't throw over the middle of the field. Let's change the offensive environment and watch the usage flip. Boom, the chart completely flips. The chart completely flips without me hovering my mouse over anything. What do you notice about this versus the last chart? What do you notice about this subset versus the last subset? 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Man, first and foremost, who the hell is at the far right? Got somebody right there in that middle of that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 type usage and hovering on the line. I like it. And there's another player, a third player, creeping up to that wide receiver 2 range. I love it. Then you got a big-ass gap between those 3 on the right and the 3 to the left. And you also want to see that because that's showing you a clear delineation between targets. There's a priority in this offense, and this is what you want to see. This type of usage and this type of split just lets you focus in on the players. Whoever's on the right, I want them, and whoever's on the left, you don't need to be playing them. So let's start back here. Who is this? Who on earth is that? Jatavian Sanders can't play him. Jonathan Mingo, no thanks, and Tommy Tremble back to where you should be. So you work your way to the top. You know it is Deontay Johnson, 9.48 score, giving us close to 24 points a game over the last 2 weeks with Andy Dalton. Elite usage, elite production, lock and load, top 12 guy right now. After that, you got Adam Thielen. Yeah, remember he was like 5 point something weeks 1 and 2. He had that week 3 performance, and we know he didn't play week 4, but it's only counting what happened when he played. And when he played with Andy Dalton in 1 week, 3 for 42 and a touchdown. Great, right on the line. Good usage for what Adam Thielen is, giving us median, right there what he should be points. And then enter the rookie Xavier Legette. Over the last 2 weeks with Bryce Young, almost a 6 score, right in that kind of back end, wide receiver 2, top 24 range, giving us close to 13 fantasy points per game above the line. This is what you want to see. Now, this is combined with Adam Thielen, right? So remember, there's a nice chunk of usage here that's included from week 3. So let's zoom this thing in one more time to week 4 and watch what happened this past week as we go into week 5. You remove Adam Thielen from this Carolina Panthers situation, and you take his usage out of it. Chuba Hubbard does his thing. Miles Sanders gets some opportunities. But from a receiving standpoint, this is what happened. Deontay Johnson continued to do elite shit. Now, he came back down to earth a little bit, right? 21 points on 9.24 usage. That's great. Where did some of that go? Xavier Legette, right here. 7.7, close to 20 points. And then when you watch the tape, when you watch the film of what was happening in Carolina, this was not gadgety how they were getting him the ball. No, he was used downfield. He was used on those hog routes that I talk about, hitches, outs, goes. He was used in very fantasy-friendly ways. And without me citing how many routes, the score tells you that. I mean, you're watching the film, you can see it. But this is a situation where there was still a gap. There was no third option. Mingo's still back there. Jatavian Sanders back here. It was Xavier Legette. It was Deontay Johnson. And when you see stuff like this, at this point, 4 weeks in, Carolina's not changing what they do and who they are. I would bet that going into week 5 and beyond, it's going to be a lot of Deontay Johnson and Xavier Legette. So I ranked him on my show with Josh Norris on Josh and Hayden's fantasy channel. I'm getting to fill in with him over there doing some stuff with Underdog, supporting those guys. I talked about Legette being inside of my top 36 this week. I think he is a fine play, nice little flex option. I like what Andy Dalton is doing, and it just shows you that when you look at the Panthers as a whole, as a collective, you look at their scores, you look at where they rank, and it's not overly great. Deontay looks good, but 13 points per game doesn't look great. Xavier Legette, 4.57. That score is not great, 8.2. But it's factoring in some really nasty weeks. So when you use this tool, really make sure you segment this thing out, because if you look at the weeks and the splits when Dalton was on the field, Deontay Johnson producing that an elite clip, probably top 3 in the league, top 4 as far as usage for their team. And then Legette right there at the 6, getting you close to 13 fantasy points. I'm sure you're probably plugging in worse options than Xavier Legette on a week-to-week basis. So really wanted to highlight this tool in this situation. And I'll pull one more up because a lot of people are getting excited about it, and the matchup is fantastic. So let's take a look at Green Bay. I mean, we know right now Jaden Reed is going ballistic with Jordan Love. You look at his score, 614, but scoring off the chart, literally 19 points per game over the full season. Down here, Romeo Doubs actually has done on a collective more wide receiver shit for the Green Bay Packers than anybody else as far as usage. Tucker Kraft is here. And you got Dontavian Wicks. Whole season, 3.66. Let's just fast forward to the last 2 weeks, weeks 3 and week 4. Here we go. You know who this is. You know who it is. It's Jaden Reed at the top. But then, entering into the picture with Romeo Doubs right there, Tucker Kraft and Dontavian Wicks, still around the same usage score, but look how much higher he's scoring. Every time they give him opportunity, he's efficient. And then in week 4, we got usage out of Dontavian Wicks, and he was right here on par with Jaden Reed. 6.71 score for Wicks, 24 points. Jaden Reed, 7.15, 27 points. There goes Romeo Doubs, right around where he always is, scoring right around what he always does. Down here, you got Bo Melton not doing much, and Tucker Kraft. Not a lot of usage, but high efficiency. When you're playing with the quarterback who's got the potential to throw the ball 50-plus damn times like Jordan Love does, you really just trust the usage. And this week, I'll tell you, sure, these are 2 obvious plays right here, Wicks and Jaden Reed. I would say Bo Melton, the sneakiest of sneak. If you're doing some DFS type shit, like Bo Melton, you go back to 23. Let's go back to the 2023 Packers when Bo Melton got on the field late. Let's go like weeks 14 through week 17 of last year for Green Bay. Bo Melton was getting utilized a little bit. Where was Melton at? Where was Melton? That's Malik Heath. There's Romeo Doubs. It was tight. There's Bo Melton. Right there. I saw you, Bo Melton. 5.76, 11 points per game. It was a tight cluster, right? There goes Wicks. Jaden Reed always. Jaden Reed just a stud. Always there. So I'm not telling you to go out there and add Bo Melton. I'm not telling you to go out there and trade or do something crazy for Bo Melton. But Romeo Doubs is out. Christian Watson is out. Tucker Kraft is probably going to continue to do right around what Tucker Kraft does. But Bo Melton is always just kind of around being utilized to some degree. So if you wanted to go a little wild, want to get a little crazy, one of them DFS GPPs or whatever they are, maybe Bo Melton might be a sneaky play for Green Bay, especially versus a Rams team where we're just expecting a lot of fantasy points. Point totals like 46.5. Rams funnel, rushers, passers. You could do whatever you want to the Rams. BK, have it your way. All right, anybody else I want to touch on before I roll out of this show? I really just wanted to recap some of the stuff that we talked about last week, some players that I'm looking forward to seeing their usage play out this week. Let's look at week 4. Let's see if there were any outliers in week 4. Of course, we're always going to continue and want to see how stuff shakes out in San Francisco. Kelsey's usage in week 4, 8.35, 15 points. Out of necessity, with Rashee Rice out, Travis Kelce might be forced to be utilized in smash territory. Right now, that type of score, that was like average Kelce week, and that's what this is telling you. That's why he's right on the line. There might be some 20-plus point performance games in Travis Kelce's future if he's going to continue to be utilized like that. Oh, one situation I do want to call out. Jet situation. Everybody talking about Garrett Wilson. What do I do with G-Dub? What do I do with G-Dub? G-Dub's still getting utilized, man. Like he is. The problem is Mike Williams is too. And Allen Lazard is still a gnat. Like this entire situation, when you look at the Jets, here's the Jets, weeks 1 through 4. Garrett Wilson leading the way in team usage. His Trinity, 6.73, right around 11 fantasy points a game. So below the line, below where you need him scoring and not really being utilized a ton. But prior to the problem is Allen Lazard is still being utilized a lot. We know they've got Breece Hall, Braylon Allen out the backfield, slow pace of play. And then these are just gnats. When you see players that just hover around for the season 3s, 4s, 5s, they suck away from the elite ceiling of the top guys. So that's weeks 1 through 4. But let's really focus in on the last 2 weeks since Mike Williams has been that back. This is just disgusting. This looks exactly like Green Bay's situation last year where people were like, I don't want any of them. Here's Allen Lazard. With whatever limited usage he gets, he just makes the most of it. Somehow, some way. 4.5 score, 12 points a game, not much. Down here, who do we have? Who's down here? Mike Williams. He's actually leading the team in wide receiver fantasy-friendly usage over the last 2 weeks, 5.89, 8.55, well below the median. Tyler Conklin, 5.68. And there's Garrett Wilson, 5.74. So Mike Williams over the past 2 weeks has done more wide receiver shit that should yield fantasy points than Garrett Wilson. But when you look at this, unlike the other example in Carolina where you saw the clear separation of usage and targets, over the last 2 weeks, it has truly been flip a coin for the wide receivers because those three have been right there along with the tight end Tyler Conklin. This is a situation, and then we zone into week 4. And in week 4, there's Allen Lazard, Mike Williams, and Garrett Wilson. It just seems as though there is no preference nor priority to get Garrett Wilson the ball this week. Brian Flores across the pond. They blitz a ton. They also are susceptible to the pass. This is a situation where I would actually rather have the arbitrage play in Mike Williams. Give me Mike Williams at cost over Garrett Wilson at cost. I was lower than consensus in my rankings of him this week, and I still like the talent, but this situation needs to clean itself up a little bit more for me to really feel confident and recommending Garrett Wilson as a starter, starting him my damn self. So appreciate y'all tapping in. Wanted to really follow up on the cats that we talked about last week. Get on here, play around with the tool. It's $9 a month. Get on here, $9 a month. Check out the tool. $14.99. You get in the Discord. Highly recommend it. ddfantasyfootball.com. If you stuck around to the end of the video and you found the information actionable and or entertaining, as I said, really appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, comment below. And as always, trust that Trinity. I'll be out all of next week. We're heading off for a family vacation. Maybe somebody will come on and hold down the report for me while I'm out. But if not, I'll catch y'all after week 5. I'm out of this thing. Peace.